We are in a new day when we talk about college sports, college football. And to explain what's going on with this Pac 12 thing, let me first explain how conferences make money. Conferences make money usually by two ways. They make money by athletics and by academics. Now, when we talk about some of the bigger schools and we talk about some of the bigger conferences, their money is predicated on their major sport. What do I mean by that? Let's look at the ACC. While yes, the ACC has Clemson, the ACC makes most of their athletic money through basketball. North Carolina, Duke, NC State, Clemson. They make most of their money through basketball. The same is completely opposite when we talk about the SEC. The SEC makes most of their money from football. Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, Georgia. When we talk about this Pac-12 situation, we are seeing the end of the Pac-12. And the reason why, if you look at the Pac-12 currently, you have USC, Utah, Washington, Oregon, Oregon State, UCLA, Washington State, Arizona, California, Arizona State, Stanford, and Colorado. The news broke yesterday that the Pac-12 was unable to, get a deal done with Oregon and Washington State, and both teams are now going to be going to the Big Ten. This comes off the backs, I think, a day before that Arizona will be going to the Big Ten, which also comes off the heels probably a week or two ago when Colorado is going to the Big 12, I believe. And of course, last year we learned that as USC and UCLA are going to the Big Ten, I believe. Here's the thing, man. I talked about this when we heard about USC and UCLA. When your flagship schools or when your money-making schools leave your conference, that pretty much starts the clock on your imminent end. You see, the Pac-12 can survive or could have survived if a Washington State, with UCLA and USC leaving, they could have survived with Washington staying, with Oregon staying, with Colorado staying, especially when you see Colorado and Deion Sanders and the resurgence of that school in Arizona. But now, bro, think about this. Now I understand winning solves a lot of things as well. And recent success could change this. And while yes, I understand that maybe a couple years ago, the Washington was in the college football playoffs, and Oregon ultimately made it to a national championship. I think the inaugural college football playoffs, Oregon met Ohio State in the national championship. However, both teams. Washington got destroyed. I believe it was by Alabama. They got destroyed, and Oregon ultimately lost. We talk about the history of the Pac-12, and we talk about the history of USC. USC used to be a powerhouse, of course. Yeah, I understand now you have Caleb Williams and everything, but before Caleb Williams, it was mighty bleak for USC. After, of course, you had Matt Leinart and you had Troy Polamalu, you had Reggie Bush. I understand those days, but those days are long gone. I understand Chip Kelly kind of rejuvenated UCLA, but UCLA hasn't been good for a while either. I talked about this before, and you're going to see we're pretty much seeing two super conferences at this point. Right now, you have the Pac, or you have the Big Ten, and you have SEC. Now, yes, you have the Big 12 and you have the ACC, but you're pretty much going to see four major conferences now. I'm interested to see what happens to like the Sun Belt Conference or what happens to the MEAC Conference. I'm interested because it's like the Pac-12. While yes, it wasn't as successful as other conferences, it is a major conference. But I think we have seen the end of the Pac-12 very soon, because there's no way that like Utah and Oregon State and Washington State and Cal and Arizona, there's no way that those schools can maintain. And now I will say this. There are schools like Cincinnati. There's schools like maybe USF. There's other schools that could possibly try to join the Pac-12, but none of those schools are or make the same amount of money or bring in the same amount of money or have the same gravitas, if you will, as a USC, as an Oregon, as a UCLA. And at this point right now, because of Deion Sanders, as a Colorado. We're seeing a change in college football, man. We're seeing a change in sports in general. I understand that it is I guess for lack of a better term, a scary time, because it's like, do you really want parity is a thing, right? And parity is a thing that a lot of people claim that they want and claim that they like. I don't know how much parity you're going to get outside of the conferences or whatever. I don't know how much parity you're going to get when most of the good teams are in two different conferences, which is why I believe that we're going to get super conferences. I think ACC basketball makes too much money and makes enough money that the ACC can survive, especially with Clemson. Now, if Clemson leaves, that's a whole different conversation. Because another thing that we know is basketball programs and football programs are completely different. Yes, they can be in the same school, like North Carolina basketball and football are obviously the same school, but for a perfect example, Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame in basketball is part of the ACC. Notre Dame in football is an independent. So, this is a new day, man. This is a new day in college football. And I understand that the Pac-12 was, or the president of the Pac-12, because every conference also has its own president. The president of the Pac-12, I think that they were trying to roll out a subscription-based thing, but nobody is going to pay for a subscription to see Utah against Arizona State at 10:30 at night on the East Coast. Like, don't get me wrong. That's no offense to those schools, but you're already struggling, even with the big schools, even with Oregon. I'm an Oregon fan mainly because of the jerseys, but I'm an Oregon fan. You know how tough it is to work a regular 9 to 5, and you have to stay up till 10:30 in the morning to watch. Oh no, 10:30 at night to start a college football game. Do you understand how long college football games are? The Pac-12 was already fighting or battling against itself when we look at the teams and their most popular teams and where they're located in the United States. You're automatically going to have late games. That's why a lot the viewership for Oregon or USC, while they're high for the Pac-12, they're not high for college football, because you're losing an entire coast because of how late these games are. And now that they're leaving, it's like, what is the draw? What is the what would bring a school? What would make a school want to leave their conference to go to the Pac-12? Now that all of your money-making schools, because and that's another thing, all the schools in the conference make money off each other. So while yes, Colorado was 1-8 or 1-11 last year, they still make a lot of money because you had an 8-1 school Like the success of your conference also makes you money. That's not going to be the case anymore when you're, I mean, oof. Yeah, man. We have, I don't know what's going to happen, obviously, but all I know is that I believe when I listen to people talk and when I see, it feels like the writing's on the wall for the Pac-12. And it feels like the writing has been on the wall for the Pac-12 ever since we heard of USC and UCLA jumping ship to go to the Big Ten. Once that started, I believe that started the countdown. And I think the nail in the coffin happened yesterday with Oregon and Washington and Arizona all pretty much leaving the conference. It's a new day in college football, and unfortunately, it feels like it is the end of the Pac-12 because I don't see how that conference survives. Or let me say this: I can see the Pac-12 surviving. I can see the Pac-12 surviving and flourishing, but I don't see it as a major conference anymore. It's not. There's no way that you can consider the Pac-12 a Power 5 conference. Now, yes, I can see the Pac-12 kind of moving and going to like the MEAC or not going, but operating as maybe like the Sun Belt Conference, or maybe, like I said, the MEAC Conference, or maybe the Mount West Conference. But I think this is the last days of the Pac-12 being considered a, quote, Power 5 conference. Oh, man, you stayed to the end of the video. I appreciate you. If you like what you saw, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss any content from your boy. You can also go back and watch past episodes, past clips, and don't forget that the Unpopular Podcast, new episodes drop every Wednesday and Saturday. Appreciate you.